Well, when we talk about doing God's will, making sure that we replenish the earth, be fruitful and multiply, I take those things to heart. So I'm doing the best that I can. And my wife tells me I can't do, we're done, but I told her Sarah was pretty old whenever she had her. So I'm not giving up. Yes, I am Chris, and I am president of His Saving Grains. What we have got is a patented process, patented machine. We have answers for gluten issues. Excuse me. We have answers for gluten issues, diabetes, all of these different chronic health issues by being able to get back to God's system and not a man-made system of nutrition. And it's all in the technology as far as what we've got. So when we've got that available, we've got that out there, that is something we talk about purpose. To me, that's a huge, huge purpose. And this is something that people can get back to understanding creation through your food. So my best seller is to give stuff away. They will be back. So that's what we do. That's pretty much what we gear up for as far as helping people. And when we get into this has got a pretty long story. We're 4 generations into this whole process. But my grandfather, born back in the 1915, when he got to be 20 years old, was diagnosed with rheumatic fever. Was given 6 months to live. So he goes to a holistic doctor. Now, granted, this is back in the 1920s. Goes to a holistic doctor. They said, we can extend your life. We don't know how far, but we will extend it by staying away from, get this, processed foods. 1920s. So he took that to heart. He decided he was going to go out and buy 28 acres, raised his own animals, raised his own grains that he was feeding his animals, and really cleaned things up, and he died at 92 years of age. So that was something there that spoke pretty loud as to the whole processed food part of things. So when he was trying to figure out just exactly how to do this, what to do, he came up with a dairy herd, and he was at that time feeding whole kernel corn. So the whole kernel corn a lot of times passes through the animal, comes out the backside. When you haul that manure in the field, it will grow. Well, that corn did not nourish that animal like it was supposed to. So Grandpa was really fired up about that. And I remember walking around his garden one time, Dad, him and I, on a Sunday afternoon, and he was talking about this and needed to find a way to put that corn in a form that can be digested 100% by that animal. So that was kind of the start of this whole crushing deal that we are doing. But Grandpa came up with these problems. My father became a tool and die machinist, and he came up with the answer. He got far enough along in his career, he did not need to work for other people, started his own business on his farm, and he raised animals and grains the same way my grandpa did. But, and I know because I was out in the fields, instead of using chemicals to kill weeds, I was out with a hoe, walking up and down 40 acres, knocking down weeds. So, so he raised food the same way that my grandfather did. And when he came to the point where he could have his own business, had extra time, that's what he did. He spent his time trying to answer the problems that my grandfather had come up with. Probably $2 million later, 20 years later, he came up with an answer. And as that process is going, I was a school teacher, I was a coach, so I didn't have time to get a full-time job in the summer. I just had 5 acres, and I raised most of my animals, most of my vegetables. I couldn't raise the grains, but I did that on my 5 acres. So in the summer, with all my troops, with all my kids, we would go down to Grandpa's, we would help Grandpa bale his hay, take care of his livestock, and work on this crusher. So that's how I kind of got drug into this, because I had the time. And Grandpa needed to help, or Dad needed to help. So we went down. So that's how we got in the middle of all this. And my father got far enough along, and this guy could see problems 2-3 steps ahead of time. And he would fix them before that ever became a problem. I never had that. I had to run into the wall and then try to figure out how to get around it. But so whenever we got to the point where he was putting this all together, he was not one who could get it into people, did not have the people skills, but he would think like nobody else I've ever seen, nobody else I've ever met. So that's when I got involved. After 28 years of teaching, I decided that I was going to retire from teaching. And you can imagine my wife, when I had 2 to 3 years left, that I would get full retirement. But I got out of teaching, took my retirement, and dumped it into this business. And I knew that to get this product out, we had to get this into people's hands. So we go down the FDA, the ODA route, we make sure that we're certified, and now we can get this product into people's hands. We went to farmers markets, and we went to different places out there as far as stores, but putting this product in people's hands was our best path forward, because they would come back. And that's how we found out that people with gluten intolerance did not have any problems eating it. But it was getting it into their hands, going to farmers markets and getting that feedback. So we started off with a pretty safe crowd. Even now, Amish are our main customers. And we had to keep it in a controlled environment until we could see that, yes, it works. So they gave us a lot of feedback. And we had production problems because when my father passed in 23, he took the blueprints with him. Didn't have anything on paper, so we had to go back and try to figure out how to redo that. So production was an issue for us that we had to go back and take care of. But as we go through all this process now and understand how this all came about, and it's always easier, you guys know this, after the fact. You can reflect and see why and how. But I go back and I look at the whole coaching thing. We were pretty successful coaching. And why were we successful coaching? Because eventually I was going to be the one to get this product out to people. For 15 years, I was probably the predominant picture in the paper. So building up trust with community, building up those relationships. And people saw me, recognized me, were willing to try this. And at the time, I thought, man, I'm a pretty good coach. And now at the end, I figure out, well, no, this was designed. This is the way that the plan was moving forward. And I was just saying yes. And so when you get into this and understand that and see that, just absolutely amazing. Farmer Jeff was one of the people I know that was put into my life, because I'm still with him 30 years later. But he was put into my life, showed me success. He's the reason that I had my first varsity win, because I gave it to him. I knew that I didn't know that he had a better chance than I did. So I said, here you go, draw the play up. He draws it up and we win. And ever since then, I've listened to him significantly, and against most of my other coaches, against most of the other people that I have depended upon to help me. Because if you know him, you know he's crazy. He's outside the box, but he knows what he's doing. So that's kind of the path that we went down. And I know that there's a reason why that he was put on my path. And as we go down through this, you talk about using biblical principles in sports. If you talk to him, you'll also find out the thing that we did the best in coaching was got people to play together. But you can't do that if you don't use biblical principles. If you don't care about your teammate more than yourself. Which in sports right now, that's my biggest concern, is everybody wants to be the hero instead of find your role and be the best you can be in your role. Whatever it is. but you've got to get into your lane, stay there, be the best you can be. And those are the types of things now that we are doing in our business. So we've taken all of that we've learned, as I can reflect on and now understand better and better all the time, putting it into our business. And now we've got a family business. I've got 4 of my sons, all 4 sons. I've got 2 son-in-laws that work there. So now we have an environment, and we've got a couple of special needs people that we come in and we employ to help us with certain things. But now you've got an environment that they could come in that's not high pressure. We're not about production. We're about helping. We're about sharing, helping each other, caring that more about the other person than yourself. And now we can take all of those characteristics and put into this business. And I think when you do those kind of things, everything else will take care of itself. It's all going to happen because you've got God on your side. You're doing His will. You are taking care of others. If you put yourself first and you try to take care of yourself and make sure you're good, then you've got another path that you're going to take, which I'm not saying it can't be done, but I think it's a lot tougher. And so those are the type of principles that we are using now in our family business. Now, we have get-togethers and different things, and it is amazing to me, 8 kids. I would think that we would not necessarily get them all to come, but they are all at every get-together. They don't miss. We've got those grandchildren. They're there at everything, and they come out during the day to visit Grandma and my wife, and she has always been a stay-at-home, even when I taught. We did not have much money. We did not have much income, but she was going to be a mother to those kids. If we were going to do the kid thing, have 8 of them, we were going to make sure we did it right. So that was a path that we chose to go down, and she's still on that path today. And she is there, so the kids still come down in the middle of the day with all the grandkids. They go down and they visit her, and guess where they end up? Out in the shop. They come out and they see Grandpa. They come out and they see Dad. They see their uncles. And so we're doing this 2 to 3 times a week, consistently. So when you look at a family business, when you look at trying to get into that path, and I've been very fortunate, I've been very blessed. I don't deserve this. I understand this. But as I get it, I'm going to take advantage of it. And so that's what we promote. And this is the stuff that that we put front and center. But the business side of things, this thing just continues to grow. We've got, like I came up here today, and I've got to take a big truck because the truck that we use to travel is in Arkansas. And he hasn't been home in about 3 weeks. And I've got to get rid of that because he's got 6 kids. So we've got to get him back home more. So those are the type of issues. We still have problems. We've got plenty of problems. But we've got to try to figure out how to get those solved. But when you look at doing things biblical, doing things in His will, those are the type of things that the path that we've went down to get to where we want to get to. And now we have got, once again, these grains that people can eat, animals can eat, and all of this chronic disease is all alleviated. Chronic disease, as Chris was talking about, choices. Choices on what we eat, choices on how we eat, choices on what we drink. It all makes an absolute huge difference when it comes to chronic diseases. Go to the CDC website, they define, well, first of all, they say chronic disease is the number 1 issue now. Number 1 health issue is chronic disease. And then they define chronic disease as a situation that our body cannot operate in its environment. So we've got to change the environment. Even the CDC talks about this. So when I go down that path, I go back down this whole thing of creation. God didn't create all of these chemicals. And in the grand design, He created food to be our medicine. good food is supposed to be our medicine. That is creation. We've got to get back to making those choices, to choose to eat those types of foods. But that comes back to choices that we make every day. And it also comes back to having that food available. So with us, we do a lot with the grains. We're getting into bakeries. We are trying to be more active up here in Michigan. We want to try and put a processing place up here in Michigan so that we can have Michigan raised wheat, Michigan processed, baked, everything right here. And that's the thing that I also found out is local. The more local you can do, the better off you are. And whenever we get into putting these businesses up, one of the things that I want to do is I want to go back to trying to create as much as we can family businesses, at least family-owned businesses. But put Dad back at the top. Put Dad as a leader. Put Dad raising their kids, showing them how to run businesses. Take them away from putting them out into the world where you don't know who's going to be their boss. And I really think that is the way that creation was supposed to be, as much as possible. And our society, we've gotten away from that a lot. I understand that, and it's hard. Trust me, it's hard. You know, there was a point in time where I had a crusher we had sitting on top of a platform. I was the only employee. My job was to reach into a big 2,000-pound sack, pull out buckets of wheat, one in each hand, crawl up that ladder. I was in a little better shape at that time too, so maybe I should go back and try that a little more. But I would crawl up that ladder, feed the grain up top, come back down the ladder, pull the grain away at the bottom. I did that for 10 hours a day. So it's tough, it's hard to get there. However, I do think that it is, in my opinion, been well worth the trip. And now, whenever we get out, we can feed people food that does not cause them issues. And, you know, you go back and you look at all these different foods, the one thing that really, really sticks in my craw is people who are demonizing wheat. And what we're finding out is wheat is not bad for you. It is a lot of the chemicals. Potassium bromate, azotobicarbonate, datum. These chemicals that are known carcinogens in Europe, so they refuse to use them. And by the way, gluten is not that big of an issue in Europe, if at all, because they're not using those chemicals. In the United States, you have to use them. So, but wheat has been demonized. Gluten intolerance is the disease, the problem. And what I'm finding out, that is the main health issue that is helping our business expand. Last night, I had a different meeting that we were at. There was a lady that was supposed to be there. She ended up not showing, but I've been in contact with her, and she was actually celiac and had success eating her product. And she was the 4th person in the last 2 weeks that I've heard from with celiac that can eat it. And I'm not saying that everybody with celiac can eat it, but I've got those 4 that could. And there's many others. So you get into those type of situations, once again, a God-created nutrition. Staying away from synthetics makes a difference. But then we go back and look at that. Now we put the pressure on our farmers. They've got to use the proper practices. They've got to build soils up so that not only can they raise good grain, but good beef. You've got to have good grass for this beef to eat. And that is what Farmer Jeff is currently doing with a lot of success. And so it's being done. It's not, hey, can we get there? We can get there. What choices are we going to make? How are we going to move forward with our health, with our nutrition, helping each other? So when we get to this situation, and you got a family that is helping, you got a family gearing up. Now we know that this is going to continue. There is drive, there is determination, there's a lot of history, a lot of experience, and we know what that experience can do. And when you get that much invested, it's really hard to quit. It's really hard to cry uncle. At that point in time, fighting always seems to be a much better option to keep this thing moving. How much time do I have? I can keep going? Okay. So in the end, what we've got now, that's what we desire to do with our family business, is to be the example.
Is this you? How do we find you?
Healthygraincrushing.com.
Healthy Grain.
Yes, that would be our website. And when you get on there, those boys took a picture. I was out on the road, so I'm not on that picture. I've been trying to get that fixed for 3 months now, and they won't take another picture. So, you know, I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. But so, but anyhow, so yeah. So what we desire to do is we desire, once again, to expand this. I don't want necessarily to have one big business. What I'd like to have is a lot of small family businesses in various communities where we can provide good food. And you know, in the end, this whole thing, my vision, we're going to come back to not only having grains for people to bake with and to eat, but we're going to have farmers out there that are raising beef that they sell local, eggs being raised out there that they're selling local, pork. So now instead of going to a food processor, if you so choose, you can now go to a local farmer and get your food. And remember too, when you get back into this whole thing, we are to bake bread by the sweat of our brow. It's all supposed to be work. That's all I've got for today. So if you've got any other questions, feel free to ask me afterwards, and we'll have conversations. Thank you all.